The use of images and symbols are the quickest way of communication and can speak into the hearts and minds of people very easily, embedding themselves in our culture. The symbols humanity uses are based on many things, including animals, where that particular animal's traits speak meaning into the symbol. When we see the interpretation of some of these symbols change, we can know it reflects a deeper cultural shift. Images of the sheep and the goat have come to represent certain characteristics that have been planted in our Western minds since early antiquity. Most often the sheep is represented gentleness, care, and even self-sacrifice, while the goat has represented sensuality, wild behavior, and disobedience. Even today these symbols remain, but we're seeing a change in how they're valued in society. The sheep that once represented gentleness now stands for ignorance and weakness, summed up in the word sheeple. As of 2017, Webster's dictionary even made it an official word. In contrast to the sheeple stands the goat, but now it's used as an acronym, greatest of all time.
Now bring out the inner goat in you.
Why be a sheeple when you can be a goat? Goats represent individuality, innovation, and risk-taking, all traits of people who are supposed to be successful in this world. This is a recent cultural change and points to a major shift of value in the Western world. And like any change of heart and mind, you can be sure there's a spiritual element involved. Historically, the image of the goat has represented virility, where it was reported by the Greek historian Herodotus to have been used in fertility rituals in the ancient Egyptian city of Mendes, and has been associated with the lustful god Pan of the Greeks. In ancient Israelite culture, it was used as a sacrificial offering called the scapegoat, or Azazel, and cast off into the wilderness. Even demons were associated with the goats in the Old Testament, where they were called Seir. While in the New Testament, the parables of the end of the world taught by Jesus use the sheep to represent those who will be saved from destruction, and the goats, those that will be cast into the lake of fire. This is why the goat has often been affiliated with the adversary in Western Christian culture, and has been connected to the stories of witchcraft dating back to the Middle Ages. So we should take note of what other value changes are taking place along with this imagery. The goat is the unofficial mascot of the modern satanic movement in many of its recent forms, starting with the Church of Satan back in 1966 to the Satanic Temple established in 2013. If we look at some of the tenets of a satanic church, we'll see that it represents the heart of the goat and what this imagery communicates. Here's the list of 11 satanic laws for Earth as dictated by Anton LaVey for the Church of Satan. Do not give your opinions or advice unless you are asked. Do not tell your troubles to others unless you are sure they want to hear them. When in another's lair, show him respect, or else do not go there. If a guest in your lair annoys you, treat him cruelly and without mercy. Do not make sexual advances unless you are given the mating signal. Do not take that which does not belong to you unless it is a burden to the other person and he cries out to be relieved. Acknowledge the power of magic if you have employed it successfully to obtain your desires. If you deny the power of magic after having called upon it with success, you will lose all you have obtained. Do not complain about anything to which you need not subject yourself to. Do not harm little children. Do not kill non-human animals unless you are attacked or for your food. When walking in open territory, bother no one. If someone bothers you, ask him to stop. If he does not stop, destroy him. If you read these to someone you know without telling them where these principles came from, most would agree with many of them. Even if they weren't ready to admit it, it's clear to see how our society has been moving towards these values. Humility has been lost, and self-centeredness has become a desirable trait. Social justice is promoted where shaming and sometimes violence is an acceptable response, while at the same time the right to murder the innocent is upheld, and provision is made to pervert the innocence of others. As these things are being played out in our culture through movies, social media, politics, and even surfacing in our churches, self-glorification is the gospel of our day, and all represented in the image of the goat. Though we like to think of ourselves here in the West as individuals following our own hearts and our own will, if we're honest with ourselves, we'd see we're just reflecting the images being valued around us by those we look up to and respect. Are we being goats by doing this, or are we really just sheeple, mimicking what we see going on in front of us? In contrast to the goat, the concept of the sheep gets a bad rap, where the idea of being a follower is shamed. Ironically, social media has probably done more to enhance the effects of peer pressure in our time, possibly creating more blind followers than ever. But to label sheep as dumb animals misrepresents its characteristics. It is another step in alienating society from biblical teaching, where the lamb imagery was often used to communicate certain spiritual principles. Most likely, sheep were chosen by Jesus to represent the righteous in his parables, not because they're good followers, but because of the ability of lambs to distinguish their mother's call from all others in the flock. In fact, a 2001 study found that sheep can recognize and remember at least 50 individual faces for more than 2 years. That's longer than many humans, and points to Jesus' emphasis that his sheep will always know who their shepherd is when he said, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." As Christians, many of us have been caught up and would agree with the 11 satanic laws for Earth, and follow leaders that embody these concepts. When the culture adopts these goat ideas, it's easy to lose sight of our true shepherd. So it's important to look back and be renewed to his mind and how he taught when we lose track. Jesus' code of conduct was summed up in what is called the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Points Jesus hits on here conflict with our natural inclinations, especially the idea of being blessed when people insult and mistreat you falsely. As sheep, we tend to follow what we see, no matter how goat-like we view ourselves. But to follow these Beatitudes takes a strength and conviction no human being has. No goat can accomplish them. The only way is to take on the supernatural power of the shepherd, Jesus, by keeping our eyes fixed on him. Otherwise, you'll be led around as sheep following every person claiming to be the goat. Our society is set on a trajectory that, if continued, will lead to our own destruction. Fools thinking they are as free as goats, but really are just as bound as any sheeple. To escape this, we need to turn to the Good Shepherd. Jesus said, "I am the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd gives his life for the sheep. But a hireling, he who is not the shepherd, one who does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees. And the wolf catches the sheep and scatters them. The hireling flees because he is a hireling and does not care about the sheep. I am the Good Shepherd, and I know my sheep, and am known by my own. As the Father knows me, even so I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep." Jesus laid down his life for the sheep, that all who call on him, repenting from the wrongs we have done in our lives, he promises to lead us through the valley of the shadow of death and deliver us from the judgment to come. He has all power in heaven and on earth and wants you to follow him. Jesus said, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish, neither shall anyone snatch them out of my hand. My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of my Father's hand. I and my Father are one."